Hopefully we're getting going. Oh, I forgot to start the time. Close enough. It's like 10 seconds off. Started the timestamp. Everything's getting going. Spook wanted some pets, so he's on the chair next to me. I think I heard the other cat too. Okay. Hi, folks. Thanks, Brent and Bruce, and thank you, Hugo, for reminding folks to do the thumbs up. I think Vin might be outside the door meowing as well. As always, we're going to just take a few minutes here to just get everything going. And I'm not sure why. Vin's like, Dad. Hi, Charles. Hi, Gary. Good afternoon. Retro Game Puppy, caught it live. Congrats. Good morning, Unexpected Maker. Thanks for hopping in. Hey, Johnny. Hope everybody had a good holidays. I wonder if Spook's going to want to go out. He's not in the cat cam right now. He's awake. Vin was just meowing. I don't know why. Wow, this live broadcast chat is not happy. Object. First one of the new year. Hi, Juan Carlos. Yep, first one of the new year. Let's see if I can refresh this and it'll. There we go. Something's unhappy in the Discord. I'll just USB switch PCB. Yeah. I did a remix of an existing one. Let me see. Make sure my desktop is. There we go. All right, we're just over time. Awesome. Hi, Sammy. Hi, Michael. Good morning. Hey, Mark. Hi, Adam. Oh no, we're getting object again. Something's wrong with this stream kit for Discord. It was like degrading. I just updated everything on the computer because, I like to live dangerously. It might be a Firefox thing, whatever version of Firefox I just installed. Retro Game Puppy says, let's deep dive. Bruce says, I guess I'll delay my Wi-Fi network upgrade until after this, lol. I mean, I never break everything. I know what you mean. I totally know what you mean. Yeah, not sure I'll do a whole lot of coding today. In fact, I know I'm not going to do any coding today. We can talk about code if folks have questions, but I don't have anything planned. So let me get started. I could kick the cat out. He's usually okay, though. He's at the door right now. He just got out of his bed and wanted some pets, and now Vin is meowing, being like, let me in, let me in. Anybody in the non-YouTube chat, if you could just say hi on Twitch, that would be awesome, just to make sure that the restream chat thing is working. Thank you, David. Hi, Thanos. Awesome. Thank you so much, folks. Okay, so spoilers. Here's the deep dive notes. Let me just take a time code. It's 10 seconds off, but that's okay. Oh no, and I hit the reset button. Now it's 4 minutes off. Hit the wrong button. Okay, that's definitely not right. I can't believe I did that. I hit the reset one. Let's just make a note. Plus 4 minutes, and I'll add that later. That should be close enough. Okay. So for those of you who are new to this stream, my name is Scott, and I go by Tan Newt online. I work for Adafruit on CircuitPython. I've worked for them for, 4 years now? So they pay me to work on CircuitPython full time. CircuitPython is an open, easy-to-use version of Python designed for embedded electronics, specifically microcontrollers, which are teeny tiny computers that are really inexpensive and make it really easy to get going and use them in all sorts of projects. So Adafruit is a CircuitPython shouldn't be beyond you. We should be able to get you going. Retro game puppy. So Adafruit is an open source electronics and software, or hardware and software company based in New York. They've been around for over a decade, and they do lots of really awesome stuff. They fund a lot of software development. All their hardware is open source. So if you want to support me, please support Adafruit by going to adafruit.com and purchasing all sorts of different hardware stuff there. If you're new to Adafruit, what you can do is there's learn.adafruit.com, and it's just like guide after guide, so like tutorials and instructions on how to build all sorts of different things. So yeah, it's CircuitPython. Gregory asks, what is easy Python written in? CircuitPython is written in C, and it's based on a project called MicroPython. Me6 says, I'm now the proud owner of 3 sets of silicon jumper cables because of your streams, lol. Yeah, I know. They're great. I was using them, I think, over the weekend or over the holidays too. And the silicone jumper wires are the way to go, in my opinion. So that's one way to support me and support Adafruit, is by picking up a set of really nice jumper wires. Okay, what else do we have? So if you want to chat with me and a lot of other awesome people, there's always the Discord server, which you can join by going to adafru.it/discord. That's the short link. We'll get you to the Discord GG link and get you into there. So please do that. You'll see that there's the gray box above me. That's from the Discord. It's having some trouble showing usernames, which is weird. And there's a question, Thanos. I see your question. I'll get to that. Let me just finish housekeeping, and then we'll dive into some questions. So this is a deep dive. It means we can talk about anything, particularly technical stuff. It's normally done on Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm in Seattle, so that's why I'm Pacific time. Occasionally we do it on Thursdays at 2 p.m., but this week and next week will be on Friday at least. It typically goes for about 2 hours, so we've got plenty of time to discuss whatever anybody's interested in. I always have a plan for like how I can fill those 2 hours if people don't have questions. And there's plenty to talk about this week. But questions are welcome. So I see Thanos's, and if you have them, I'm watching YouTube Restream, which is Twitch and LinkedIn and Periscope if it's still up, and then Discord as well. So you can ask him any of those spots. Restream is not on the video stream just because I can't moderate it. So that's why it's there. Last thing is a note that the cat, who is now in the cat cam. Oh, the cat cam's too. So there's Spook. He's awake. He's looking out the window. He is epileptic, which means he does have seizures from time to time. He only has them when he's asleep. So now that he's just like sitting up and awake, he won't have one. But just a heads up that if he is asleep, he's usually in the bed. That's why the cat cam looks down. I wonder if there's anything I could prop it up with, because we like watching the cat, don't we? Almost. The power, I'm trying to wedge a power kit, a PPK2 underneath it to lift it up. Here, I'll do Kleenex too. There we go. Now we can see Spook. Cat cam is a key part of these deep dives if you haven't watched it before. But yeah, he does have seizures occasionally. He's been doing really well, so I wouldn't actually expect it today, especially because he's outside. It's Spook. What is outside? He's like, I don't know, dude. I'm about to go back to sleep. Yeah, so that's the deal. Happy to have you all here. So just some more hellos, and then we'll all get to Thanos' question. Bruce says, I only wish it was easier/faster to get Adafruit Canada. DigiKey usually only has the older stuff, and mail from New York seems to take weeks. Yeah. Sorry. I'm spoiled too, because usually when I need something from Adafruit, it's urgent. Like I need to work on it. So I usually get next day shipping as well. Me6 says I'm in Singapore. Is that true as well? Okay. Hi to Hugo. Hi to Eric, who says, I just started using the silicone jumpers as well. Love silicone wire. It's so slinky, durable, and heat resistant. Hi, Mike Causer. Hugo says hi to you, Spook, and folks want to know what's outside. It's like the street, so there's like sometimes dogs and things walking by. Anything? I don't know if I can reach him with my headphones on. But they like to look at that way. Yeah, Gregory Malchuk asks, is the cat on medication? The cat is on medication. He's been on phenobarbital for the last 4 years. He had seizures like right as like 5 years. As I quit my job from Google is when I first saw them. So he's been on phenobarbital for that, and then he's also on levetiracetam, I think is the new one, and it's been working really well for him. So it's been great. Okay. Retro Game asks, do you get the super chat money or Adafruit? Adafruit will get the super chat money. But as I said, like I'm paid full time, including for this time that I stream, and I'm not cheap, so don't feel bad about that. Okay. All right. Let's me take a time code, and I'll answer Danis's question. So let me just copy it. I've been using my laptop a bit more, which is a Mac, and like my Command C, Control C is all mixed up, and it's the worst. Humble brag much. Yeah. If you want to support me directly, I should also say that you can, I do have GitHub sponsors. So if you do want to support me directly, you can become a sponsor of mine on GitHub. And the $10 tier is cat pictures. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll get cat pictures out there. I think we're up to 6 people in that tier, so we're like actually having to like dig deep. My wife helps me too, of like cat pictures to post. So yeah, okay. Time code plus 4 minutes. The right button. So Thanos asks, is CircuitPython as powerful as C++? And David followed up, says, great question. Will be great to hear Scott's reply, but different tools each have their individual power. Choose the appropriate tool for the job. Yes, so I think it's a matter of what you think powerful means. There's a couple dimensions that are common to think of, like how good is something, right? Like one is how fast does it execute code, and that clearly C++ wins. CircuitPython is built on C, so there is some code that runs as fast as C++ would, which is typically on par with C. But there's a lot, the higher level layer of Python just simply cannot run as fast as C. And that's because C has the benefit of being, let me refresh this again. C has the benefit of being compiled, which means the compiler can optimize the actual code that runs underneath. Whereas in Python, you compile your code, but then you're given new code, basically like the Python code itself. And that Python code really, like, you don't know what you're going to get, and so you can't do that many optimizations. So the way that CircuitPython gets around some of those limitations is for the things that are very time critical that you need to run fast. They're implemented in C. And so what you do is you do some Python code, and then you call into the C, and then the fast thing happens, and then it goes back to the Python code. Which gets me to the second point, which is powerful. Like if you're talking in terms of computation, Python doesn't win, but Python is very powerful from the sense that you can iterate really quickly. So it's powerful in terms of getting things done, like how long it actually takes you to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. In that case, it's very much like it's very powerful. Python is very powerful, and that's the trade-off that Python is making, and I think it's a very worthwhile trade-off, especially now that, like, previously, like, real computers, CPUs were going through this phase of, like, if you need something, that's another good question, Gregory, and I'll do that after this. That's such a good question. but yeah, so that's the trade-off that Python makes. Python and CircuitPython make is that if you need code to run faster, you can buy a CPU that runs faster. It's actually much more expensive to have developer time make something better or faster. So having a language that is faster to program in for people is actually better in that sense, better than the trade-off of like having a language that's run faster but harder to develop for. So I would say like I like CircuitPython. I think it's the right place to start. And there is also this weird hybrid capability of both Python and CircuitPython is that if you write your code in Python and you find that it's not fast enough, what you can do is you can actually, like I said, have that Python call C just for the bit that needs to be fast and then return back to the Python. So there is a way to get like the best of both worlds. And that's true like in regular Python called CPython. Like NumPy is a great example of that. Like NumPy is the library that you use for crunching numbers, and people use it for machine learning and all of that. But all of those libraries, as far as I know, they actually are implemented in C because they need to be faster. So there's this really cool, like you can develop really fast in Python and then you can escape to C when you need it, which I think is actually a good option. Oh, and we were watching Spook that whole time too. He's like, Dad, I'm tired. Okay, let me switch back to my camera because I'm going to do a lot of talking, so we'll probably be on this a lot. And I'll take another time. I'll squeeze another time code in here, and then I want to address Gregory Malchek's question too. Actually, no. Let me do this one first. So Retrograde Puppy says, "Is Arduino something totally different from Python?" I would say it is different in terms of implementation in the language. It is not different from CircuitPython in terms of the types of things that we want to allow you to do, right? Like Arduino is a subset of C++ with some tweaks, and it's designed to make it really easy to do things like read the button, do something based on a button, and that's what CircuitPython is geared towards doing as well. It's trying to be easier than Arduino to do those sorts of things. Oh yay, we have a new cat sponsor. Should I just take a picture of Spook now? Gonna need lots of cat pictures, which is good. Thank you, folks. So many good questions. Okay, so next up, let's keep going through these. Gregory Malchek says, is CircuitPython designed for real-time computing? And I would say, oh, did I take a time? Let me take a time. No, but so I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's something that it's good to be explicit about. And this will come up kind of a little bit later. We've got two more good questions queued up as well. So CircuitPython itself, the Python part of CircuitPython is not designed for real-time computing. It's still pretty good, but the thing with Python is that the memory model is kind of like, it just works. And that could mean that if you're filling up your memory, there's a phase that takes a while to clear out the memory to garbage collect. And because that can happen anytime kind of in the background or any time in between the Python code that's executing, I don't want people to think that the Python is real time. And by real time, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like how quickly you can respond to things. Now, the but is that CircuitPython has these APIs that are designed to be real time. So if we just go to like the read the docs and you look at like core modules, we have like Pulse.io is one of the things I'm thinking of. And so what we do is we provide APIs that do kind of more real-timey things. So pulse in and pulse out. So if you need to do like a pulse train, yep. And build in a Sentry also says gamepad is another. Exactly. So our philosophy with CircuitPython is to lean into what Python does well, which is Python does iteration and programming and connecting the dots really well, but it doesn't necessarily do run really fast well. So what CircuitPython's goals are to provide all the things that run fast on their own and then help you hook them up very quickly. So CircuitPython itself is not designed for real-time computing, but it's meant to orchestrate things that are real-time. So that's my answer to that good question. Catfish has a related question. Me trying to remember my hotkeys. Add it to the notes. Sorry, I like to do these notes because these videos end up being 2 hours long. So having time codes that show up in YouTube is really helpful. So Catfish asks, can you do threading or multitasking with CircuitPython? The answer is no. MicroPython, which is what we're based on, does have threading. But it hasn't been a focus for us primarily because we are focused on being a simple single kind of orchestrator between things that are that are doing stuff. It's not, we could also do it because MicroPython has the mechanics, but I don't think it's as powerful as this other role that we play, right? Like if we have PWMIO, or Gamepad's a little bit different, but PWMIO, for example, like under the hood, we actually set the microcontroller, the system on a chip, to do things without the intervention of the CPU itself, which is like way more powerful than if you were doing some sort of multitasking or threading on the CPU itself, because the CPU still has to do whatever task you're doing. So it hasn't been a focus for us. MicroPython can do it. It's not been a focus for us to support. We had a community member, Warrior of Wire, actually enable async and await keywords. So if you've done C Python, one way to do multitasking is what's called cooperative multitasking, and the fundamentals to do that are this async IO stuff that is actually enabled in CircuitPython. We kind of just don't show you how to use it because it's not something that we've really tailored any of our APIs for or our guides for. And as Hugo says, like keeping threads synchronized and data between threads like consistent and as expected is actually quite hard. Alex Garfield asks a quick one that says, where will you be after Periscope is gone? So I'm streaming, I work for Adafruit. Adafruit streams through a service called Restream. So this stream is available on Periscope, but it's also available on twitch.tv/Adafruit. It's available on youtube.com/Adafruit. It's on some others, but I would recommend either the youtube.com/Adafruit or twitch.tv/Adafruit. Either one of those will work. Okay. Another question, which I'm not gonna be able to answer this one as well. So Retrograde Puppy says, what program do I want for my Raspberry Pi Game Boy for button inputs? So this is an interesting trade-off. Because Raspberry Pis run Linux, there's more layers between you and the hardware. And that means that like reading a button can actually be a bit more complicated. What I would recommend looking at, and I don't know like what you're trying to connect it to, but there is this, we have a library that basically provides the CircuitPython APIs, but on, let me pull desktop. We do have like, so this is learn.adafruit.com, and we have a thing called Blinka, and our search is not very good. It might just be CircuitPython on Linux. But the Blinka library presents all of the same APIs. but on like a Raspberry Pi. So I would actually recommend this if Python would work for you. Okay. Mike Hauser says, need to set up a laser on a servo mount with a web interface so your watchers can entertain Spook. Gotta catch that red dot. He doesn't play with a laser pointer that long, so that would be, I think, a little bit frustrating. It frustrates me. I would love it if they just played for a laser forever, but they don't. They're picky. Retro Game Chat says, or Retro Game Puppy says, I understand why they keep your super chats. You must cost a fortune for this info. Yeah, I have a lot of experience engineering, and engineering is a lucrative business. Okay, Gregory has another good question, and I might have to punt on it. It might be outside my knowledge, actually. But let's talk about it. So Gregory says, why can't we create a language that's easy to use like Python, as fast as C or C++, and is efficiently garbage collected and memory managed to be able to do real-time work? Hypothetical question. I mean, I think you're like, why can't we have it all? There's a great podcast Lex Friedman did. I think it's Lex Friedman. How do you spell his name? Lex Friedman podcast with he had what's the Clang guy's name? Show recent. I want recent. Popular. Chris. No, not Bjarne. That's the C++ guy. Not Chris White. Show all. It's not that long ago. Let's see. Chris Latner. So he's worked on a ton of stuff, and he's very... Thank you, Bruce. Bruce S. also got it. Chris Latner works on Swift, and Swift is interesting because it's trying to be a bit more of that, of like, it's memory managed, but they are trying to be more like Python. He talks about this in this podcast, which is trying to one thing Python does really well is that the amount of concepts that you Chris Latner is at Sci5 now, I think, based on at the time of this podcast. So they talk about this idea that like the concepts that you need to learn as you learn a language can be you want to reduce that set, so you only have a very few things to learn, and then you can learn new things as you need them. I went to university. I graduated in 2009, and like we taught Java, and Java had this problem where they wanted you to be very explicit about concepts that are very advanced. So like first day we're teaching you Java, and it's like, okay, you want to write a main function. Well, here's what a function is. And then also like you have to say public static void main bracket args, blah, blah, blah. So there's all this stuff that we had to just say, like, type this and don't worry about what it is. Whereas in Python, like, you can just have it say, like, okay, we're going to teach you a print statement first. And it just says print hello world and run it and you're done. So that's one thing that he talks about as influencing to Swift. I think you're going to be, and then there's this dichotomy as well of like interpreted languages versus compiled languages. And it has a lot of influence over how quickly it is to iterate. There are newer languages try to have faster compile times. But I think it's really hard to be an interpreted language for like iteration speed. But yeah, I think it's very hard. Like language development itself is not something that I've done a ton of. right? Like CircuitPython really is just like, let's take the best of Python and do it that way. Like we're not reinventing anything. What we're really doing is we're just like bringing new APIs within an existing language. And Anecdata says real time, depending on how you define it, creates challenging constraints. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like to say real time is like a little bit not specific enough as well. Of like, usually I think with real time, even like true real time systems, it's categorized by like how real time they are. And so if you're bound for what real time meant was like CircuitPython is more real time than Linux is what I would say. Like I don't think anybody would argue with me on that. But does that make CircuitPython real time? I don't know. So yeah, programming language design is really interesting. Design is really interesting generally, I think. Okay, let me just read some comments about this and then we can keep going. Again, if you have more questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, the plan is to get to talking about broad CircuitPython level planning. So right now we're doing CircuitPython 2021. And I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me just read some comments and then we'll move on. Juan Carlos says, language development indeed is hard. I know several mathematicians that work in that field and I can barely understand them. Yep. Ryan G says, NIM tries to fill that role. Zig aims to be lower level without a GC, but still friendly. Mike Causer says, I had to learn Java because I was writing Cold Fusion, which is built on Java, and it was too slow, and like with Python to C, had to go lower level for performance boost. Dylan Rice says, based off what it sounds like, C#, Swift, Rust, or Julia all might be close to what you're looking for, Gregory, but none of them will be exactly all the things you want. Eric Osterley says, part of the ease of Python comes with interpretive nature. Generation says, hi, thank you for what you're doing. You're welcome. And Adam P points out, everything is a compromise. Choose the right tool for the problem. Yeah, and I think that's the strength of Python too, is like Python itself is really strong, but when you need the performance, you can use C. And I would love to actually like be able to use Rust instead of C, but that's a whole other thing. Ooh, good question, Mark. Okay, Mark has a good question. So let's take a time code and pivot. And these time codes are 4 minutes behind. So Mark, who goes by Gambler Online and has been a huge help, says, more in-depth question, feel free to skip it. What is a Q string? I've got a vague idea and see them everywhere in the core code, but I haven't had a chance to dive into them yet. Yeah, so let's just show where this ends up. So let's pull up the CircuitPython code. This is a great question, and I maybe it's something I've covered before. I don't think I've directly covered it, so that's good. So I have talked about shared bindings. Shared bindings is where we go from Python land to C land, and it's also somewhere where we see a lot of Q strings. So if we just look at the bottom, this is a table that maps Q strings, which are strings, to the objects that implement like functions and things like that. So you'll see this like np rom Q string, np qstr dinit, really, really common. So what a Q string is it's a number. So it's you're able to put a number in place of where a string is, and then there's a collection of strings somewhere else that you can. Ooh, let's look at this too. So this is something we've inherited from MicroPython. So Bruce S just pointed out that there's a link to some documentation on their side. So uses string interning to save both RAM and ROM. So there's a process. So when you say np qstr, it's something that, yeah, here we go. you can find all the MPQ strs, and then basically you squish them all together in a big long list of all the strings. So you do have the strings, but then what you do is you replace all of the places that it's referenced with the index into that big long list of strings, which means that like you're deduplicating strings across the entire code base, and to reference them, you're using something that is likely smaller than a pointer size as well. So you actually may save, like, the amount of data that you have to save is actually less. It's a complicated process. But it's pretty neat. And this also does happen. So when files are pulled in, QStrings are, like, if you import a file, QStrings are imported from that file as well. But yeah, this looks like a great reference. I've played around with changing the way this works. I don't think that's true. Like, I haven't done it yet, but I was trying to make the process of computing the QStrings more parallel. But yeah, they're not a great way. Basically, you get to deduplicate strings, and then the identifier you use for them is shorter than an address. And that's important because MicroPython and therefore CircuitPython also play some tricks with saving data within 4 bytes, like a word. So there's a benefit to having the ID for the string that's shorter than 32 bits, because then we can have other types in that 32 bits, which is a whole nother thing too. Okay. Let's we can still answer questions and stuff like that as they come up, but I do want to kind of introduce what I was hoping to talk about today. Charles says it has an interesting byproduct in that you can translate the strings in other languages. No, actually, that's a separate process. QStrings do not get translated. QStrings are like your if in your if statement, or your API in your wow, my brain just left me. Anyway, we do use some of the QString mechanics to do the translations as well, but that is kind of like something that's right on the side of QStrings. It's slightly different. Mark says, thanks for the answer. Trying not to leak or waste memory as I work in the core. Yeah, I think just as a general rule, if you were adding strings, whether it's like an error message like Charles is talking about that gets translated, or a name, like if you reuse a name, then it won't cost as much if you're reusing something. That being said, don't make a terrible API because you want to reuse names. But for one way we've saved memory in the past is actually looking at all the error messages and realizing that like the error messages could be the same where they're not. So that can save some space. Okay. Actually, let's not talk. I know Brent, I think it was Brent, wanted to see this USB switch PCB. So I'll just hit the time code here. And so Oshpark is great. This is a PCB design I did over the holidays, and I did it because I want to move to the PPK2. I know I've used the Joule scope on the stream before, and basically it's a PPK2 shaped version of this front plate. So it's all the same circuitry. It's just like squeezed down because it doesn't need to be the full front plate. So what it does is it's got USB-A. So this is what you plug in your board. USB-B. So this goes between your like hub and here. And then there's a switch to turn off and on the data lines. And then the power between this plug and this plug gets routed through, in this case, the Joule scope. But in the future, it would be routed through the PPK2. And that's really handy for being able to measure power of a USB device. So yeah, that's just a quick like respin I did. And it's a little hard to hand assemble because it's like I'm using to switch the data lines off and on. I have a USB switch, data line switch, where one side is just not connected. And it's this like tiny chip that's kind of a pain. Okay. 239. Okay, so hopefully that was enough. So this year is the third year that we're doing this, and it's called CircuitPython 2021. And I kicked it off on New Year's Day. And the idea is that I really like taking the new year to just like, you know, we're in the weeds, we're working on stuff, like pause, put our head up and see where we want to go is kind of like the way that I think about it. Think of it as like medium term planning versus like, what am I going to do next week? And I think it's really vital to do that. I think that's a hugely important part because that means that like week to week, you know which direction you're generally going. So the way that we've done it the last 3 years is based on the Rust folks. So Rust is a very interesting language. I've never actually tried the language, but the community is really good. And so the way that the Rust folks do it is they do it actually at the end of the year. But they ask basically everyone within their community, hey, write something up, tell us what you want to see happen or what you want to do, or what you would like to use Rust in this case for. And they what they do is they'll actually like whittle it down and like have a document that they kind of all agree on, I think. And I don't really want to go that far. But this is where I got this idea. Do you compile Rust with the oxidize command? No, I think it's yeah, I know this is open still. What is it? Cargo is the thing that you compile stuff with, and it does package management as well. But yeah, so this is where we got the idea. Rust C, Bruce says. It goes to show I've not used it. We actually have taken a lot of inspiration from the Rust community. And I kind of want to I want to go back. We get this question a lot about like the relationship between CircuitPython and MicroPython and the differences. So this is exciting. Everybody should do this. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. If we have time, I'm going to start drafting mine. Maybe I'll do that next week on the stream. I'll definitely do a blog post about what I think are the important ones. But what I thought I would do today is actually start by rewinding back. So we've got 2 years worth here. Where is it? Yeah, we have these summary posts from 2019 and 2020. So remember, those are based on like the new year. So this is CircuitPython 2021. So I want to look back at these and I want to actually just see what people have said and see if we've done them. I thought that would be kind of fun. I want to take a look at the ones that we've gotten for CircuitPython 2021 so far and talk about those as well. And then I want to go even further back. I think that this is kind of something I tried to do from the very beginning. So let's do a bit of a rewind and see if we can't find... I was thinking about this. So I started working on CircuitPython, which what became CircuitPython. I began working on it in August of 2016 is when I got the email from Phil to be like, hey, do you want to do a project with us? That's when I started working on MicroPython. And then it became CircuitPython in January of 2017, I think. So I actually just want to... We might have a place that we have this. Oh, you know, it's probably easier if we do my blog posts. So I just want to see if I can find, like, we did a post in January of 2017, I think, when we said, like, oh, we're going to call it CircuitPython. And that was kind of when we were like, okay, here's our kind of bigger vision for all of this. So let's just rewind. Let's just take a look at my blog posts in January. Yeah, so if we look back, wow, that GDB debugging guide is really old. I didn't realize that. So yeah, so this is kind of the 2017 version. We didn't do the community side of it yet, but I think it was kind of I guess it's not that long. This is the post where we pivoted from calling ourselves Adafruit MicroPython to actually calling it CircuitPython. And one of the main reasons is we feared people would drop the Adafruit part and then we're just another MicroPython and we'd be confused. And we know we didn't want to do that. We wanted clarity. So this announces it. Right, like the main themes here are like new hardware APIs. APIs are consistent across processor. The APIs that we have that in common with CPython are strictly a subset. And like, this is probably a theme that you've heard of from me, but this is kind of like when these ideas were like publicly introduced, well, broadcast. Like we work in the public, so to say that they weren't before that. A few things may change, but the vast majority of the APIs are fixed. Focused on creating awesome libraries and drivers on top of this new foundation to help verify the API design. Any help was appreciated. Here's a link to where you can get all the stuff. So I think, like this post is not as long as I imagined it was. But it is like core tenets that if you're coming into this community now, you can probably still believe that like you understand that those are fundamental things to our project still. Dylan says, I would love to be able to have an embedded ecosystem based on Rust similar to what CircuitPython is. Seems like the language tooling isn't quite ready for prime time yet, but I know a bit about Rust and where it is right now in terms of development. I only know a little bit about they're working on it, which is really cool. Benjamin Peng says, does CircuitPython support the Nucleo WB55? If not, will it be developed? It doesn't currently, and I believe that's a Bluetooth chip as well. So if you ever want to know whether something is supported, you can go to circuitpython.org/downloads, and this has all of the boards that we build CircuitPython for. So you could just type WB55 and it's not there. But if you type like Nucleo, you can see that there are Nucleo boards that we support. So that's a really easy way to get that answer. Answering the question of will it be developed is a tougher question, and this kind of gets me into a bit of maybe a small rant. I think it's important that people realize that CircuitPython is open source, and almost all of its development is funded by Adafruit. But there's a separation between, is it going to be added to CircuitPython, and is Adafruit going to add it to CircuitPython? I have always made the promise as the person who kind of like leads the project that if you work on something, I will review your code. Please talk to me in case it's something we don't want. But like most things are like, if you want threading in CircuitPython, I'm not going to tell you no. I'm going to say like it must match threading in CPython. But like if you want to do that work, we can get it in. And that's the same is true for like supporting this sort of board. Is like, I'm not going to do that work. I'm happy to give you help to do it, including reviewing and stuff. But it's really up to the people that have the interest in having that feature added, whether it gets added or not. So I can say from the Adafruit side, like we have a lot of other platforms that we're interested in. And so the ST like Bluetooth stuff is probably not going to be added by anybody funded by Adafruit. We did a lot of stuff with ESP32S2 this year, or last year in 2020, and like they've announced both the C3 and the S3, and the C3 and the S3 are also really interesting. And so we'll probably work on those instead of the ST stuff. Yeah, Hugo says, so sort of Adafruit won't fund the work, but will foster the work around it. Exactly. So like, I've always kind of been like, Adafruit will pay me to help you, but like, I don't want to actually do the work. Like, there's still a significant amount of work to do, but like, they pay me to get people on board in this project and facilitate it. Like, that is something they're willing to pay for as well as me going heads down and getting something working. But the heads down, like deep technical work that I'm going to be doing is going to be related to Adafruit products. And so I think that's important to say that like Adafruit does give me time to do like this stream and all the reviews that I do. Like I did a stream where I just did all my email and reviews, right? Like they pay me for that time, even though it's not directly, some of that work is not directly related to Adafruit products. So if you'd like to add it, I would be happy to give you guidance on it. And I think I wanted to be a bit clearer as well for the CircuitPython 2021 stuff. There was a few posts from last year, and maybe we'll see them, of like, we want Adafruit to add this. And it's just like, that doesn't always match with what we want to do. So I think it's better for CircuitPython 2021 to be kind of like, I think this would be really cool. And it's specifically like, if you want a specific project in mind that you want to be able to do, that's really valuable to us. Another kind of pitfall in some of the responses that we've gotten are like, they're very like feature driven. So people say, I want multi-threading in CircuitPython, when the real question in my mind is like, okay, what do you need multi-threading for? What are you trying to accomplish that you can't accomplish now? And that's kind of my response to all the common, like, I want interrupt support. It's like, well, why do you want interrupt support? Because like we might have a way to do what you want already, and now you don't have to worry about that CircuitPython is not like that real time. So yeah, that's kind of my ranty of like Adafruit work versus this would be cool to have in CircuitPython, and also like feature versus like what do you want to actually accomplish sorts of stuff. Okay, so let's we have all my blog posts. Let's see if we did anything in 2018. So this is kind of a cool timeline actually. So when did we... So see this guide here, this kombucha thermostat one? My wife did this guide. And the feather that we use here is a pre-production Feather M0 Express. And it's like still running this version of CircuitPython downstairs. Like, which kind of boggles my mind. Like she was the very first user of what CircuitPython became. Okay. Yeah, so we went to Europe. That's right. I worked from... Wow. Did you realize this would be a nostalgia trip for me? We worked from Europe for like 3 months. Went to PyCon. That's a testament to the language and the hardware. Yeah, I mean, it's also a testament to the fact that it's like on its own. Like there's no like outside world. So if it does what it needs to do, that like you don't need to update it. So July 19th, 2017, CircuitPython 1.0. And that's SAMD and ESP8266. Wow, that guide is that old too, creating and sharing a library. I still reference that. CircuitPython 2.0 is in September. What was the difference between 1 and 2? From the release page. We updated to a newer version of MicroPython. Now you can write files to the file system on some boards, write bytes to a non-volatile section. This is where we add storage, bigger heap, byte array. Yeah, so Dan is already working on this at this time too. Happy 2021, David. Um, Brent says, I used the creating and share guide this week because I built a library and haven't shared in a while. It's been kept up to date in some steps. Okay, good. I'm really bad at keeping my guides up to date. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, interesting. Here's a post I titled CircuitPython 3.0 Plans. 2.0 was all about storage because it enabled the use of the internal file system, SD cards, and bare bytes. 3.0's theme is shaping up to be a combination of code improvements to facilitate new hardware support, particularly the SAMD 51 and huge dock improvements. And the Discord server is alive. Cool. It's interesting. We've kind of changed the way that we handle major version numbers as well now. But since we're just scrolling through this, we'll see. I also wanted to see whether... Oh yeah, so here we go. We have a CircuitPython in 2018. Juan Carlos asks, I forget if you already answered this in past streams, but how does CircuitPython versioning work? At what point does work on 6x become 7.0? Ooh, that's a great question. Let me take a time code before I answer it. I did just allude to that, didn't I? Okay, time code. Sorry, I'm like rewired my brain on copy and paste codes. Okay, so the question was, I forget if you blah, blah, blah. How does CircuitPython versioning work? At what point does work on 6x become 7.0? So looking back at these blog posts, we can see that like 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 were 1.0 and 2.0 were really about they were about expanding APIs, right, and being able to do more functionality. And then 3.0, I think, and 4.0 were really like more marketing focused, sorts of like 3.0 is all about the SAMD 51. And once the SAMD 51 supported, like that will become 3.0. And then I think, let's just like, so in between like 3, 4, and 5, it was more focused on particular platforms that we were adding. So like one was definitely the SAMD 51. Another was definitely the NRF 52840 was a big one, and Bluetooth. But with, I think it was 5 and then 6 as well, we've kind of wanted to move to this model of like, we need to get stable releases out more frequently because those are the ones that people use. And so the stable release, the first number in the 3 numbers is really all about like, we are changing something that requires your intervention to fix. So it's truly like major versions are API breaking changes potentially. And you could see that in like, even, I think is it still in there? But when we do the release notes, let's see, it's in here. So we have this section of like breaking changes since 5.x. So these are all the things that require code changes if you're upgrading from 5 to 6. So like if you had code that had I2C slave in it, now you have to replace it with I2C peripheral. Stop keyword arg, default I2C speed, moving like a class from here to the native class, moving the audio stuff. So so the main thing is actually deciding when, like some of it was also instability of like if we update MicroPython, like there's a lot of code to integrate, and that means there's probably bugs. And so like we'll probably do a major thing like that along with breaking stuff. So if you look at our issues, we do actually have a milestone for 7 as well. and basically what we're doing is we're collecting all the ideas that require us to actually change things. So you can see like matches all keyword argument conflicts with all, right? So like rename something here, remove packet buffer packet size, and pass connection to packet buffer its characteristic and its service. I actually need to make an issue. One thing I want to do also is actually change the LED pattern when it errors out, because that's not going to require code to change, but like people need to know like, hey, this is different. And the reason I want to do that is because now we do sleep. So like we need to do different LED things when your code's not running so that we're not burning through your battery if we're stuck in that state. So hopefully that answers your question. Hugo, I see your question, and I will just take another time code before I answer that. But yeah, so 7.0 will come when we're... The other thing to think about is like we're doing a lot of iteration right now on the S2, and like we need that to settle out before we're willing to take kind of a bigger gap between like a 6.0 and a 7.0 release. And that's okay. Like I'm okay with, like there's a lot of work that has to do, like if we do a MicroPython upgrade, like that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of like time that we may not want to be called stable. And so there is this like balance of like, okay, we got to get all this stuff done, call it stable, and then give us a little bit more breathing room. Okay. So Hugo says, when, if at all, do CircuitPython changes go into MicroPython? And the same for MicroPython changes being merged into CircuitPython. Very few CircuitPython changes go into MicroPython. I can only think of like a few things, but it's never commits. It's never commits. It's usually what happens is like if we find an issue in the core like Py directory, what we do is we'll file like an issue on upstream, and then they'll fix it there, and maybe we'll pull that individual change down. But it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare that things from CircuitPython go up. Another example is like I really pushed for a ports directory in MicroPython very early on. CircuitPython had it way earlier than MicroPython, but eventually MicroPython did do that as well. So it's pretty rare for CircuitPython stuff to go upstream. Of course, they can look at our code. So they do have like a SAMD port, and I've like repeatedly offered to like provide help if they need it in terms of like answering questions about it. But they've just not had the person that is interested in actually fleshing it out. The opposite question, the same for MicroPython changes being merged into CircuitPython. I think it's been like a year and a half to 2 years since we last merged. So we've done it a few times since CircuitPython started. And basically what we do is we pick a version of MicroPython and we literally merge all the changes into CircuitPython. I think, yeah, it's a ton of work. Like it's not like it's mostly in like the Py directory, because for the ports, like you've probably noticed like all the port folders that we have, we explicitly name them something different than upstream, like MicroPython, so that when we're doing those merges, we don't have to worry about files in like the same directory for all the ports. We have been talking about doing a merge, and I suspect it might actually be maybe the last one we ever do. When I actually was talking about, I was talking with Damien a bit, and he said that one, he's gonna do a 1.14, and so I think like we'll wait to do a merge until 1.14's out, because it's easy to communicate what version we're based on then. And there is reason to do it because they have like native modules and they have better async IO stuff. But like, yeah, so we're gonna do that. but it's not clear to me that there's going to be a lot of development after that. When I was talking with Damien, he said like a lot of the work that clients are asking him to do is not necessarily on the core, but like more in the ecosystem side. So it's possible that the MicroPython core after 1.14 is really not going to change that much. So we'll see. I do talk with Damien kind of like sporadically, and so I have an idea of like what's going on. I follow what's going on upstream, and Dan does too. But yeah, we'll probably do it again, probably this year sometime, depending on how things line up. We would like to do it, but it is a lot of work. So if we end up having like lots of platforms, like the C3 becomes available or the S3 comes available, and we want to support Bluetooth on it, like that's a lot of work, and we might prioritize over that over merging. Okay. Bruce S says, I think Scott should get a commission for all orders during a stream. Only needs some sort of tracking code. And then Me6 points out they bought the camera that I use. Really, like, honestly, I don't, like, no, like, you don't. Like, doing specific tracking and billing for that stuff is, like, thank you. And, like, we could compare, like, times when I'm streaming versus not if we really cared. But this is not why they pay me. They pay me plenty. And so supporting Adafruit is a good thing to do. And as Adafruit is more successful, I do get, like, additional money from them depending on how things go. Along with everybody else does too. So really just supporting Adafruit is good. You don't need to support me specifically. Johnny bought the camera too. Oh, Toddbot has another good question. So Toddbot asks, would you/Adafruit ever consider making CircuitPython an organization on GitHub rather than an Adafruit subproject? Might make it psychologically easier for other orgs to contribute to CircuitPython. So we do have that org already. And I do want to do that at some point. But it is a chicken and the egg problem. Like, Adafruit deserves a lot of, like, all the credit. Adafruit deserves all the credit for CircuitPython, or almost all the credit for CircuitPython right now. So I love the idea of the project being bigger than Adafruit, and that is my goal. And they pay me for that time that I spend towards that goal. But the reality is that it's not going to happen. I'm not going to have a good argument to move it from the Adafruit org to the CircuitPython org until we have, you know, at least one other full-time person funded by a different company. Like, but then again, if you think that's something that now's the time, because like Microdev, for example, has been doing a ton of work and doesn't work for Adafruit. Like, if you think now is the time, say so. We can make that happen if you think that's appropriate. So we've snagged it. We have it. We can do it when the time is right. But it's kind of amazing for me sometimes to see all the people that complain about Adafruit's name on everything. And I'm just like, dude, they're paying for that open source code to be there. Like, the least you can do is be okay with it, the library being called Adafruit _ something. Like, it just amazes me that people complain about that. Mike Hauser says, having CircuitPython as a fork of MicroPython means it's awkward forking / checking out each repo and contributing to both. Let me take a time code because I'll address this as well. A standalone org would solve that. So we really wanted to be careful, right? Like, and I still want to be careful. I don't want to, like, I don't want to hide the fact that we are based on MicroPython, and uh, that is really important to me. And so I think it's very good that we show up as a fork. Um, it you're right that it makes it more awkward because you can't have two forks of your own on GitHub, but it is totally doable. I was actually just talking with IoT49 on an email thread too, and one suggestion I had was you have one GitHub fork of either one of those two things, but then locally what you can do is you can have two folders that can pull from like MicroPython or CircuitPython, but then also to push to like your one repo. And in fact, like my copy of like my if you go to like tannewt/CircuitPython, uh, like it's actually a fork of MicroPython. So like I feel ya, like this was called tannewt/MicroPython and I renamed it. Um, so I think it's like, yeah, I know it's not ideal, but I think it is important for us to acknowledge MicroPython and our relationship to it. That's what I would say. Uh, Mr. Certainly says folks are complaining about Adafruit's name on everything. Well, maybe it's because they make lots of good things. Yes, and yes, there are a few folks that complain about it. There are not a lot of folks. Um, Juan Carlos asks, is NeoPixel not an Adafruit term? I somehow thought it was, but that library does not have an Adafruit prefix. Um, NeoPixel is a term, is a specific trademark term for NeoPixels for that's owned by Adafruit. Um, and .star is another example. Um, it's actually kind of more of a fluke that the NeoPixel library doesn't have the Adafruit prefix. If you look way back, like the NeoPixel library was actually created, it was based on a library in MicroPython, I think. And then like we did it early, we did it kind of like before we had the policy of prepending Adafruit underscore to everything. So it's really just like, it kind of like got grandfathered in after that policy. Johnny says Adafruit loves their trademarks. Yes, they do. Trademarks are super beneficial, and um, that is really like the I don't know, the Toddbot asks why is the restream thing broken, or the StreamKit thing broken. I'm not sure. I try to keep refreshing it. It's some bug that I don't want to debug. Trademarks are really important, especially when like there are very few things that Adafruit does not share, and like Adafruit trademark and the like product brand trademarks are like really important because they bring the value of that into everything. So I think it's a good thing. The other benefit of trademarks is you can actually figure out where people learn about something, right? So if somebody learns about WS2812 stuff, like then you know that they discovered those things outside of the sphere of Adafruit. But if you hear them call them NeoPixels, then you know that like it was somebody kind of like directly or indirectly related to Adafruit, which is why they found that. So yeah, I think trademarks are really important, and I think especially for open source companies where they build their like they sell their products based on their reputation, right? Like that is the value. That is the value that customers are getting. It has to do their reputation. Yeah. Quick versus Stemma is an interesting one. Like technically they are different because Stemma stuff has logic level, whereas Quick doesn't. But they are compatible. Yeah. Most of this is just all fill in the more. I don't have a lot of say in it. Yeah, Ken says, it's because of the Adafruit name being on the Arduino libraries that I first really became aware of them. I have no problem with their name on being on things they have supported and given to the community. Exactly, right? It's marketing, right? Like, it's also really good marketing. And like, how many people have found Adafruit because they're using a library that was written by Adafruit? Like, and therefore they go and shop on Adafruit.com. Like, it makes total sense to me. I think it's super valuable and we should keep doing it. So yeah. Hugo says, I see it as trademark protects the what, patents protect the how. Right. Okay. Where were we? Let's look at this 2018 post, and maybe I should link to it actually. CircuitPython 2018. This time last year, I was working alone on the core while Tony DeCola did the first guides and Deshipu helped with drivers. Over the course of 2017, CircuitPython grew from development of the core codebase to a broad project that involves a community of folks working on the platform, a variety of hardware, creative tutorials, diverse libraries, and helpful tools. Along the way, we've learned a lot and worked hard to improve the beginner experience. And then community. Oh yeah, this is complicated. Yeah, true. Johnny points out that prefixes on open source libraries also help protect against name clashes. And in the CircuitPython domain of our IOs, like at the end, like it does kind of the same idea. Make uniqueifying things, like import bus, but bus IO is like a little weird. It also differentiates between someone writing a driver for their product that Adafruit sells and Adafruit writing a driver for their own product. Yes, and that's important to us as well as people who provide support. As if we know it's an Adafruit library, then like we know that kind of like it's our job to make sure it works and is supported. Oh yeah, I should totally link to this. Core platform. The core has been stable both in design and implementation. Our ever increasing library count is proof of that approach. 3x, we're refactoring the core to ensure a uniform execution flow. New to hardware will bring BLE. AdaBox 6. What are we on now? I don't even know. It's higher than 6. CircuitPython is coming to the NRF 52 and the SAMD 51. ESP32 is on our radar after NRF 52. 17, Foamy Guy says. I'm such a nostalgia buff. Can you tell? This is a cool wrap up. Libraries, people who have helped with the libraries, tooling. 2018 is going to be epic for CircuitPython. We'll be working quickly to improve all aspects of CircuitPython, not just the code. Thank you to all our contributors and community members. And some stats. Oh, here we go. I think we have... Well, this is 3 years ago, basically. Because this is the start of 2018. Steve K has a question. Let me take a time code. Steve K asks, could you please elaborate a bit on how someone might best contribute to the documentation? I think that the thing that our documentation lacks the most is actually like a higher level, like here's where everything is. So there's this, I even linked to it in one of these posts, I know. Um, so yeah, so I think the thing that's missing, sorry, somebody asked a separate thing. Brittany says, hey, I think there's a GPS on my Toyota. How do I send you a picture? I would say go on the Discord if you want to know what something is on your car. The Discord's a good place. You can join it by going to adafru.it/discord. Go on the Adafruit Discord. If there's something electronic you don't know what it is, post a picture there. Folks can help you out. I found the API documentation on read the docs is really great. Thank you. But I also have a few gaps or errors, inconsistencies. I've also struggled with examples as I'm new to working with microcontrollers like the Feather and the new OLED Featherboard. Is it possible for users to propose contributions to that documentation? Yeah, so I think there's this like high level, like we're missing this piece that is like, here's where you go for this or that. Like the API docs and read the docs are very meant to be like comprehensive, detailed, but not like tutorial like or instructional. That's what the learn guides are for. So if you find a problem on read the docs, you can go to Adafruit CircuitPython, and there's a couple places to look. If it's like a free form sort of thing, then it's going to be under docs. So like if there's this porting tutorial here that's kind of old, if that needs to be updated, you can go on GitHub and either clone it, fork it, clone it down locally and edit it, or you can just do this edit the file thing and edit it there. Or if it's in the like API for like particular module, the place to look is that's all in shared binding. So if you're looking for a particular module, like yeah, thank you, Mike. So if it's like count.io, it's the documentation for those things come here. So this special / bar gets filtered out into a single file that is a PYI file, which is actually a Python stub. And then those Python stubs get sucked into Sphinx, which is what builds the read the docs and pulls out like all the comments and stuff. So if you find a bug in the read the docs, it's what you do is you find the file that it came from. So it's going to be like module name / the class, or if it's not in a particular class, it's in the init.c. You're welcome. And then you just hit edit the file and you can make the corrections there. And then you'll be able to propose a pull request, which will run all the tests and make sure and then we'll review it. So yeah, if it's on the read the docs, that's the way to do it. Learn guides are not quite as nice. If you find an error in a learn guide, say like CircuitPython, there's this feedback and corrections link, which is kind of a black hole, which I'm not a super fan of, but this is the way to get. It goes into like basically an inbox on the Learn backend that the authors are supposed to look through. I'm really bad about looking through mine though, so sorry. But this is the right way to do it there. The other thing is, if you are doing code, if you're looking at code that's on that's in a Learn guide, a lot of the code for CircuitPython examples actually lives on GitHub in a public repository. Adafruit learning system guides. So there's this big repository that basically has all of the code that automatically gets pulled in from GitHub into Learn. So like if you're the per key's a bad example. I'm surprised it's in there. But say you're wanting to fix like the airlift e-paper calendar, like even the Arduino code now is stored on GitHub as well. So if you find an error in code that's in the Learn Guide, you can probably find it here. If you can't, then just do the feedback and corrections. Yeah, Mike Causer says, inline docs like that have a greater chance of not being forgotten when making code changes. Exactly. That's why I wanted to do it that way. Like, the starts of it were all, like, me copying docs from a separate file, originally from MicroPython, from the docs folder, and putting it inline, because I very much believe in inline docs like that. And I think it's worked out. We did do a big switch. It was inline RST, which is restructured text, and switching to inline Python stubs is actually really good, because Python stubs are what editors use for non-native Python library completion. So Python stubs are really handy to have, and we still haven't taken full advantage of that. Okay, 325. We skimmed through 2018. It's interesting here is 611 commits, 13 authors, 3,700 members of the Discord server. Mr. Certainly, what are we at now? Like 27,000? You can line comment and commits in the file history in GitHub. You can. I don't recommend it because they're really hard to find. Thank you. 26,571 members now, so we're a bit more than the 3,000. 62 libraries in the official bundle. I think we're at like 270. 38,000 designed for CircuitPython boards sold. I have no idea. No, I think we have newer numbers than this. Mr. Certainly says the ETA for 27K is roughly March 1st. If we keep growing at the rate we are. 315 GitHub stars. I think we're about at 2,000, which will be exciting. Oh, no, we're at 2,000. Holy, we didn't even notice that. Wait, it says 2K, but this says 1,974. How do we know what the actual number is? I thought it was when you hover over it. Have we broken 2,000? Rounds up for the preview. Oh, we're so close. So if you haven't started Adafruit/CircuitPython on GitHub, help us get to 2,000 officially. We're 26 away. Stu Possiblify says, anyone distributing the mag tag in the UK? You can check adafruit.com/resellers to see who might. That's what it is. Nope. Distributors. Thanks, Unexpected Maker. +1 to. This can tell you, and my guess would be Pimeroni if they do. Mag tag. Nope. Soon, hopefully. I'm sure we're making more. Okay, let's keep going. Let's take a look at, so that was 2018. Let's just keep scrolling. I'm sure I hope they will. I imagine they will. See here, like, it's interesting to see kind of like our release cadence. Like, we did 224, but then, like, it's all 3.0 focused. And then 3 was released in August. And then, like, in September, we started doing 4.0. And then we have 2019. So let's just take a look. I want to look at mine. So with 2019 and 2020, we switched the way that we ran them a bit. we found from the rest folks that like it's really cool to do it as a broader thing. So here's the summary post. So this is not the kickoff, and this is where we did actually like a draft that kind of like was, the goal was to bring it all together. It's a lot of work actually. And so in 2020 we didn't actually do the like roundup. So more core platform stuff, 51 NRF 52840. So in 2019 we're focused on supporting CircuitPython on USB. So this is where we like turn the corner and be like, oh wait, like let's make sure and only do things that are specifically for like that USB workflow. So we removed NR 52832 and 8266, and that was like, that's very clearly a reason to increment to 4.0, right? Like that's clearly breaking, like dropping support for things is clearly breaking. And then we unified a lot of USB stuff under the hood, which is really, really good. So it was cool. The SparkFun did some stuff. More docs things, more libraries things. Now have over 125. I think I should pull these stats again. So here we have quick stats. So 1,700 commits, 35 authors, 10,000 people on the Discord, 815 GitHub stars. And then a link to everyone's posts. So I'm a little just curious. So one of the reasons I'm doing this, like going back, is I'm going to write my one for this year. And I kind of like want to do it within the frame of what I said the previous year. And again, I encourage everyone to write them. Once you write them, post them publicly and email CircuitPython2021@adafruit.com. That goes to Phil and I. It's just like a Google group or whatever. But we'll get it, and then what I'll do is I'll add it to the roundup list, kind of the summary overall. So I'm just a smidge curious. We got time. Let's just click through these. I want to see how well we did, actually. I want to see like how true the things came. So here's mine. And I like to, like, one of my goals is like the lead of the project is really to help like focus us. Like there's a lot to work on. And so like my goal is to always like provide, like, I'm going to work on a lot of stuff, but what are the core things that I'm trying to like keep my eye on, and make sure that we move towards. So, I don't know why it's so like community is one of them. And this is still true. Like, like we've still been bad. Like we don't necessarily have more than a few people that do some of these things. Kattni did a good job. Like Jeff helps run the weekly meeting now. We definitely have more folks helping test the latest builds in a variety of projects. And then this workflow stuff. This is something that is definitely going to come up again this year. Mobile support for CircuitPython isn't an easy task. I don't know of a good way to program Python on a touchscreen. So this year I want to lay the foundation for interacting with CircuitPython over BLE. This is 2019. But this is going to be on my 2021, I'll tell you that right now. Yeah, so those are the core things for me. And like I said, like when I'm trying to do it, I'm not trying to encompass everything. I'm trying to like be very focused. So so I just started using this tree style tab thing. It's an extension for Firefox. But I've been pretty happy with it. I showed my workflow with my email where it's like I go through all and pick out all the GitHub things I want to do. And so it's like email tab and then like the 50 things I want to do as a result of that. So it's pretty nice for that. Okay, so that's mine. And we read this. This is 2018, so let's close that. And then, okay, so here's all the other ones. So let's just see what Shipu said. More microgame stuff. Robot stuff. Badges and wearables. We did that. Text mode stuff we didn't really do. Built-in display support is definitely done. Yeah, so that's done. Wireless communication. Speech synthesis we still don't do. Speech recognition we don't do. So like I said, there's no shortage of ideas, and just because you say it on here doesn't mean it gets done. But somebody was talking about some for last year where like battery management was it, and like we've done a good job of that. Okay, so this is from Nicholas. So this is talking about Mu. 2 items on my list. CircuitPython landing page. I think this is pre-circuitpython.org, I think. So we've definitely done that. And we continue to inspire. I think we do. So I think we did that. Okay, keep going. C. Grover. Terminal emulation for attached displays. We do a little bit of that. Ooh, interesting. Combine DotStar and NeoPixel libraries into a single strip kit library with unified API. Increase NeoPixel update speed. That's definitely been done via the Pixel Bus stuff that Roy did. So we definitely done that, and it has a way to unify the API in it as well. HSV we do within the fancy LED. Update library to predict and control maximum power draw for specialized boards such as the Neo Trellis. Don't have that. Port of the PJRC audio library and audio system design tool to CircuitPython. Starting with some essential functions like FFT. Well, we do have FFT thanks to Microlab. Software-defined radios we don't support. There's so much we can do still. This was who asked this? I'm sorry, I forgot to answer it. Extend bus I/O to transparently support extended bus addressing provided by multiplexers. Yeah, I think the idea with the multiplexers is you need to provide a class for the multiplexer that like acts like a bus I/O bus. So that's, I don't know if the library does that, but that's the way I would do it. Code initiated device reset initialization during instantiation. Not sure what that is. Self-diagnostics. Okay. This is beaten. Decent image and text functions. More GPS functions. Look forward to display I/O. Huh. Yeah, this is cool talking about projects. Like, projects are a really good way to frame it. Because it's like a very holistic view. Oh, I clicked it twice. Matty T, who does a lot of MicroPython stuff. Closer to compatibility with MicroPython. I don't think we've gotten further away. I mean, by this point, like at the start of 2019, we're still pretty far. I would like to see MicroPython become closer to what we've done, though. Display IO, LoRa. I think LoRa we do have. I think Jerry's done a lot of work on that. Oh, video content about the meetings. I think I followed up with this and said, hey, we have notes. Network connected devices. Yes, so this is something that 2020 brought. Was the ESP32S2. Small devices like the QTPy is kind of something new. RISC-V and FPGAs. RISC-V is really not that interesting. I mean, it's interesting from a processor perspective, but it's actually, I don't suspect it's going to be that hard to support. Like CircuitPython's going to be CircuitPython on a RISC-V core. It's the peripherals of a microcontroller that I feel actually like really changes the way something works, right? Like the ESP32S2 is interesting because it's Wi-Fi, not because it's Extensa LX7 or whatever. Community's good, documentation's good, hardware's good except for connectivity, which is not the case. Okay, I need to keep going. Dan, 2019 says BLE will be done. Interested with async. This is amazing to me, just like 2020. Need to clear some technical debt by working on some long-standing issues, bugs, and idiosyncrasies. Woo! Tapped my water at the wrong frequency. Mechanisms for deep sleep and wake up to reduce power consumption, which we've also done. But again, this is 2019, so it took us a full extra year to do it. Melissa says projects for 2019. Mega sensor shield. Displaying characters on the Halloween. Yeah, she did all that. Katney. Background. Yeah, it's all about community. Mr. Certainly's liking this. Good. We can keep going then. I did not spill water on my keyboard. I just spilled it on my leg, if you couldn't tell. Okay, Sedacious. We got 3 more. We're going to have I should be able to cover both 2020 and the 2021 stuff so far. 2019. The community is really awesome, which is good. Some specific personal goals. Touch IO free touch for the SAMD51. Never happened. Would be good. More libraries, definitely. More automated testing, we're still working on. Broader aspirational goals. Make CircuitPython even better at something it's already very good at, helping people learn to program. Better guides. Encourage and develop the community. Encourage and enable more seasoned programmers to use CircuitPython and help develop the platform and community. I think that these deep dives that I started doing last year actually have really helped bring more folks who have a programming background in. Brent said networking for 2019 and Linux devices like the Raspberry Pi. Async, deep sleep, which we can check off, I guess. And a simplified release page. This must be pre CircuitPython.org. Okay, one more. Python could be worse. Typing. Yeah, I mean, that's Interesting. Workflow is good. Hardware isn't quite there yet. Sandy 21s don't have enough RAM. This could be pretty important on Linux systems. Community stuff is good except for Discord is no fun. More stability, async, CPython compatibility. Library management. Yeah, I think that's going to be something that we see. Security and privacy. Yeah, not great about that either. Me6 says, dumb question, but is there a pip equivalent for CircuitPython? Or can the mu editor autoload require packages into the lib? So, no. This has been a gap for a number of years, right? Like this is recognized in 2019. Hi Bahamut. There's CircuitPy, which is probably the thing that's coolest right now, and folks have been working on it, which has been really great. It can automatically update libraries that you've got. MicroPython does actually have a micropip that you can run from the REPL if you have a network that will update stuff. I was the person that pushed for the copying and pasting from the bundle. My ideal at the time that I was really pushing at it was like you could just copy all the libraries over, but that became untenable at some point where you couldn't actually fit all the libraries on. So yeah, I agree it's awkward. CircuitPy is definitely the best option, and I'll put a proper link. So if people want to help with it, that would be great. I've been very hesitant to really spend any time on this. Oops, the wrong. Switching between Control C and Command C is just messing me up. Foamy Guy says, shout out hug to Ask Patrick W for doing lots of work on CircuitPy lately. Mike Hauser says, so there was both an Adafruit bundle and a community bundle. Yes. There still is. It uses the same mechanics to release automatically, but we wanted to make sure and recognize the difference between libraries we support and libraries we do not support. So the vision I had for that was like, SparkFun would have a bundle of all the CircuitPython libraries that they support, right? Bahamut says, so CircuitPython for the ESP32. Yeah, I think one of the starting to, like, we can look at 2020 still, and I don't have a hard cutoff, so we can run a bit late, but I think one of the, like, a theme for multiple years for me has been BLE workflow for CircuitPython, and I think I've convinced Phil and Lamore that it's important. My previous attempt to get us there was a bit prototypey and really like trying to do it all at once. Hi Christoph, Happy New Year. So I think I need to, going into 2021, I really want to think about the BLE workflow as like, get the device side solid, document it like crazy, and then just build lots of things on top of that. And I think the BLE workflow is really interesting also because we could like loosen the restriction kind of in my mind for like what CircuitPython requires, right? Like right now we're very strict about USB. And I think if we come up with a BLE workflow, I think that's what can can lead us to like we can have CircuitPython on devices that don't have USB. They would have to have BLE, but that potentially opens up the ESP32, the ESP32C3, and it also opens up the microbit V2, which has native USB, but it's not exposed on the board, which is a very weird choice. I looked at, so Me6 says Puck.js has a really good BLE workflow and web-based editor. I tried it, and I also noticed that it's just using Nordic UART service, so I don't want to do it exactly like that, but I think you're right that like that's really interesting. And Twitter Arturo had this really cool, I think he retweeted it over the holidays. There was this other, it was M5 stack had, oh man, this is, we gotta go further back. Where was it? January 5th. How do I search? Oh, wait. This is a new. Oh, yeah. So this is one thing he was showing. Like, oh, he's talking about it too. But it's not playing in my headphones. And you can't hear it either. This is not quite the video I want. I think I want this one. So there's an M5 thing. Yeah, and he like pinged CircuitPython on it. So you put it there, you click the thing on the left that you want to interact with. Or yeah, so I thought this was really cool. I wonder how it's working. I haven't figured out what the protocol is or whatever. So this is the like from a graphics to the code, and then you hit play and it runs on the device. So like that is super cool. Very inspiring, and I'm glad people are experimenting with this. Seems to be over Wi-Fi in their server. The device displays a unique key on boot and you enter it in IDE. Yeah, so I think BLE workflow could be really cool if we do it right. And there's a lot of iteration that's going to happen there, but I'm open to it. I'm open to the idea that we could have CircuitPython boards that are BLE only. Not a huge Wi-Fi fan, but no. The experience of getting a device that's Wi-Fi only on your network to me is not great. So I would always do it BLE, I think. Okay. That's 2019. Let's quickly go over 2020. There's a lot more, which is good. Yeah, BLE workflow would be great for beacons and sensors. Yeah, I agree. Let me refresh this. Okay, let's cruise through this. Was mine on there? So Jeff, who started working with us a little bit later, was talking about time. And I don't think we did any of this, although, oh, you know, we did this. We moved off systic, which is good. Oh. Interesting. Okay. Scattershot blog. Projects you'd like to build. Oh, the Sphero stuff we never did. Solar panel array. Things you think could be easier. Firmware build workflow. Do you find Beely usable on Linux? I have a lot of stability issues with Blues. I don't use it for that much on a day-to-day basis. But it does, like... Did the Twitch stream go down? It shows online on my end. Everything looks good to me. Debugging is hard. Could be easier. Hey, look. The only thing I could possibly suggest would be a live stream CircuitPython office hours waving at me, where regulars can take questions about CircuitPython or perhaps pick one project problem and do a deep dive into figuring it out. Ha! I didn't even remember this. I should let him know that I'm doing that. I don't know if I've seen Phil. I think that's who wrote this. Okay, so Twitch didn't work for some folks, so they switched to YouTube. RISC-V. So the ESP32C3, which I expect us to do work on, is RISC-V as well. It doesn't have native USB though, so that requires the Beely workflow stuff. But I think that the Beely support for the C3 will also be relevant to the S3. Okay. Keep going. So this is like somebody wants Apple HomeKit, and HomeKit is complicated, so we didn't do that. So you can email it to me, but please, it's easier if you just post it. So Thea said, projects I'd like to build. Debugging could be easier. WebUSB, WebSerial, even Beely could make it users to debug without installing anything on their devices. Easier route for writing C extensions that don't involve custom build a CircuitPython. Yes, and that's one of the reasons that we're thinking we should update, is because that should be easier with newer MicroPython. Data classes. F-string support we have, thanks to, I forget who added it. Wasn't an Adafruit person. Support for the IMXRT line we do have, but it's not spectacular. Happy New Year, Benny. Thanks for hopping on. Documentation improvements. I'd love to see the guides link in to read the docs when they mention modules and classes. That's a good idea. This is the other reason I'm reading this, is like, are there good ideas that we've missed and we need to like resurface and think about? Robots, keyboards. I think we might see more keyboard stuff this year, which would be cool. Haha. CircuitPython Wi-Fi. New chipset. ESP32S2 is this. More display I/O widgets, which, spoiler, I think Foamy Guy was talking about in their post. GUI builder, I think somebody started that. Ethernet just got a good PR. Low power modes, we've done. Async programming, we don't do well. Mini posts, Qt5 style stuff. DMX, which we don't still support. Library interfacing with a PlayStation controller would be awesome. I actually like tagged the Linux support for the PS5 controller. Like we probably can do that, which would be cool. BLE hid keyboard and mouse, please, which we do. More community guides to expand supported sensors. A guide for how to add new sensors to CircuitPython. I don't think we do that still. NeoPixel DMA. Mr. Certainly, internet is unhappy, so dropping off. Thanks again, Scott, for doing this. It's extremely valuable to look back in the past to see where to go in the future. I agree. Yeah, we're cruising. We might run over a little bit over 2 hours, but that's okay. We had lots of good questions at the start. Okay, Summersoft. Automated physical testing, which we still could be better about. Contribute more to the core, which I think they did. On the topic of BLE, it would be interesting to use an NRF USB stick as a remote that would act like a local board. As a remote that would act like a local board. So like using a USB stick to talk to another BLE board and pretend that you're connected directly? We could probably do that. I don't know if we'd want it to show up as a USB drive, because I don't really want to do like block-based stuff over BLE. That wouldn't be fun. Yeah, interesting. It'd be cool to do BLE from a desktop too. Stable and flexible BLE core. I think we do have that. Melissa. Just lots of Blinka stuff. Yep, the badges, which was on her post from the previous year. Expansion of Blinka to many more single board computers. I think we just crossed 60. So that definitely happened. More third-party hardware, which also has been happening. Yeah. Navigate me through the many products offered, maybe collecting them in a shopping cart along the way. Huh. Tutorials. Nicholas. It's a CircuitPython based mobile phone with a touchscreen and simple Python UI that's easily hackable. Yup. Yeah, we need to do that. 8 of each says more of 2019. Everything was really good. See, the community expands like the Raspberry Pi org. Newsletters and Discord are awesome. I need to get face-to-face time with someone. Oh no. That definitely didn't happen in 2020. Oh dear. That's a sad one. Keeping docs up to date. Okay. Updates from Twitter. Real-time push notifications to a Wi-Fi CircuitPython board, which I don't think we can do, although we're about to have TCP server stuff. Support for the SparkFun Artemis boards. That's on SparkFun. Tell them if you want that. At Exit. I had never heard of at Exit. We still don't support it, but it's come up a couple times. It's a way in Python to register code to run at the very end of everything. Bad Abby says, how long until TCP servers is done? There's a PR out. If you want to help test it, please. Please do that. So if you look in pull requests, it's pull request. Ooh, somebody did that. Implement TCP server bindings. So yeah, please test it out. It had some weirdness, like the TCP client stuff I did. I used the like high level ESP TLS interface from the IDF. But that they don't have an interface for that. That's for the TCP server. So we have to use like the lower level LWIP stuff. And so there's like some weird like switching between the two sorts of things that is gonna, I think, provide a little bit of instability, which is unfortunate. So that's why it'll probably be 6.2. So 6.1 should be out stable in the next few weeks, and then we'll do 6.2, which will have the TCP server changes in it. Me6 says, SparkFun Artemis looks so promising, but the software Arduino never fully materialized. Really makes you appreciate the work which goes into Adafruit products. Yep. That is something that is... Bad Abby had just linked it to you. I didn't do the code, so it's actually in Higher Effects branch from there. Yeah, I think that's something that has been further emphasized to me about how important software is on top of hardware, especially as we've seen a lot of people produce ESP32S hardware, and like CircuitPython is kind of like, besides the IDF, it's the other solution. So that it's become more apparent to me that's the case. Okay, let's keep going. What did Dan say for 2020? BLE's a reality. Easy BLE library. I don't think he ever did that. Code cleanup. There's always more to do, but feel better about it now. Real low power sleep, which we also do. And we redid the timekeeping as well. Cody asks, do I know how to fix Windows installation? I'm sorry, I don't. But you could join the Discord, which is adafru.it/discord, and there might be folks that can help there. I haven't used Windows day-to-day in a long time. Soft event handling. Interrupts we don't do. Multiple simultaneous stuff we don't do. Automated hardware testing we still don't really do. There's irons in the fire for that. Neradoc asks, where is MicroPython at with the S2? I don't believe they're working on it. There was some work I saw to upgrade the IDF from 3x to 4.2, which you would need. But I haven't seen any. I think I'm subscribed to, there's at least one issue for it. And there's some people that are kind of demanding on it, honestly. So I don't think they're working on it. I think that they've like, Damien has clients to do MicroPython work, and I don't think those clients have asked or are paying for S2 work, from what I can tell. So people want it, but there's no reason, like nobody's working on it as far as I know. Email summaries. Eric would like to see GPIO interrupt support, user level debugging, and a nightly VM build. And Chris wants to see more concise documentation. And I think that's true. I think we need to be a bit better, a bit more specific. And VS Code IntelliSense support, we should be able to do. And a guide on Python basics, I think we're going to do this year. I think there was some talk about that, which would be cool. Bruce S says, I'm guessing the S3 will be easier being dual core. I don't think... I imagine that MicroPython will get S3 and S2 at the same time. Like the IDF, I think it does abstract pretty well. I think it's probably not a ton of work because they've maintained their ESP32 support. But yeah, I don't know the state of it. I just know that they've told people no, that they're not doing it. Uh, so my thoughts for 2020 were continuing for our community, and I made this diagram, and this is I'll just reiterate it. Maybe I won't have this diagram this year, but the idea is that like there's tiers of contributors or community members, and in order to have a sane core group, you need to have like a scaling. You need to scale both the core group and outwards. So we have a lot of users, and therefore we need a lot of contributors. And to have a lot of contributors, we need a lot of reviewers. So that's something that's still true. I still want to address this a bit in mind for the next year. And then the second piece here, Steve K says +1 for VS Code IntelliSense support. I think people were playing around with it, and there is a VS Code extension. VS Code CircuitPython. Yeah, Joe DeVivo. There is this. Davey says, why doesn't Muse support Control-C shortcut for copy? I'm surprised it doesn't. I would encourage you to file an issue if it's not working for you. I would expect it to. I mean, it might be if you're clicked into the REPL pane. Right. So yeah, Foamy Guy says it does for me in the editor. So if you're highlighting the like output and do Control-C, that means like stop. Like that means something to the serial world. You can do, according to Foamy Guy, thank you Foamy Guy, Shift Control-C and that bottom pane will copy. In the top pane, it should work just fine. I don't actually use Muse, so I'm a bad person to ask. But yeah, check out that extension. We definitely like us providing Python stubs is really foundational for good editor support. And then this is the glider BLE workflow stuff that I talked about last year. And I will definitely talk about this year with the context of those devices I was talking about earlier, where I think there is a world where we have BLE only CircuitPython. So the Sedacia says documentation, libraries, better ground up libraries, supporting people that want to do workshops, concurrency, visual examples, and well-crafted metaphors, encouraging and supporting mentorship. Foamy Guy says, I started with the Android CircuitPython editor. Wish I could have spent more time in 2019 on it. Foamy Guy's still around, so you might be able to circle back to that, actually. Ooh, first. Right, porting the Bluefruit Playground app to Android. I had totally forgotten, Foamy Guy, that you were doing all this mobile stuff. Retro handheld. Making more video games. Yeah. That'd be good. I want to see video games from CircuitPython when we have Raspberry. I want to do Raspberry Pi native support so that we can have HDMI. I want CircuitPython on your TV. That's another thing I want to do. I got lots of stuff I want to do. Jerry says 2019 was the expansion of number of people that Adafruit is now sponsoring to work on it. This clear commitment by Adafruit has had a tremendous impact. Coupled with amazing volunteer efforts, CircuitPython and the libraries have expanded and improved tremendously. 2020 will be more of the same. Go beyond the demos of Display.io and BLE. More productive reviewer. And expansion of Blinka. Jerry's great. Jerry does so many helpful things. Higher effect, I think, if I remember right, this is a lot about. Yeah, this is cool because it's like both him and his friend, and they're talking a lot about so like sleep, which we do on the ESP32S2 only. Dynamically loaded C we don't do, but we upgrading MicroPython will help with that. Supercharging SPY. Yeah, so I think sleep. I haven't told them this yet, but I think I'm gonna ask a. I want a CircuitPython Roku app. Yeah, I think it would be cool. Like if you want to just have. Oh, it's certainly a can of worms too. But like if you just want to have a slideshow, like you should be able to just CircuitPython it. David asks, is deep sleep / wake on pin been completed? Yes, it's checked in. It's checked in for the ESP32S2 only. It should work. Let us know if it doesn't work. It does not save as much power as sleeping based on the RTC though, because the wake on pin requires more RTC power domain peripherals to be on. So when I was clocking it was like over a milliamp to wake on a pin. Green Eggs and Ham says, would be great to see CircuitPython for Google Coral. I can't. Do they have an ARM core in Google Coral that they actually give us access to? I thought I looked, and like all of the examples of uses of Google Coral, like the chip itself was closed, and it was just like either a PCI interface to it or a USB interface, but like no way of like I'm sure there's an ARM core in there that we could totally just run CircuitPython on, but I don't remember seeing that. Foamy Guy points out you can do Pygame display IO stuff already in Linux on Raspberry Pi. Hi, Mark. David says, any test / sample programs available for it? Check the pull request. I think I have just like, here's my test code for the pull request. It's pretty straightforward. Like in this, if you have the like duration or time alarm, like you just create a pin alarm and give it the pin that you want to alarm on. And then you can tell it like whether to pull or not and whether you want to do high or low as well. Yeah, so if folks have ideas for CircuitPython 2021, I'm not going to post anything based on this video. I will post this video. But if you have ideas, please like put them in writing or another video and email CircuitPython2021@adafruit.com and I'll add it to the list here. Have I seen the STM32 WB5MMG? I have not. Somebody was just asking about the WB55. Is that the same one? And my response was like, I don't think we're going to add support for it, but you can, or somebody can. David G said to do more BLE. Easy BLE would be good. More display IO. Display IO support in Adafruit Blinka. We do have. And BLE support in Adafruit Blinka we have as well. CircuitPython library could have better documentation. We do have read the docs for all the libraries too. The MMG is the module. Oh. And David G posted the test code for the pin alarm in the Discord. So David Dyke, you can see it there. But it failed on pin. It's still failing? It should work. Is there an issue? If there's not an issue, you should please make an issue. Lots of jargon. Yep. So a centralized place that will recommend things. So Kattni did a guide for this, and I don't know if people... It's so small, it'd fit on a QTPy. 1 megabyte flash, 256 kilobytes of RAM. I'm still waiting for the G4. What Kattni guide was that? Featured guides. And this is the problem. I mean, it's a great problem to have that you have too many guides. Like, I know Kattni just did it recently. How's this sorted? Ah, what CircuitPython board is right for you? Hi, Emmett Ray. Merry Christmas. Oh, and Foamy Guy beat me to it. Isn't there a BGA version? Okay. All right, so here's the overview of 2019. Wait, 2019. We talked about this already, didn't we? Oh, no. This is Kattni's post. PyCon was really good. Opening keynote at PyOhio. 2020, keep the momentum up, which I think we did. Code Plus Community was a phrase that Kattni inspired very early on, and it's important to us in 2020, and it will continue to be important to us, and I think we're going to just keep doing really good stuff. Keep up better with pull requests and issues, which to some degree I think we have. I mean, it's a constant battle. Build each other up, more mentorship. Yeah, I don't know. Like, have we done a good job? I think we could always do better on stuff like that. Okay, we can close this. Okay, so that was 2020. So let's just briefly talk the latest stuff. So many boards, so little time. I know what you feel. I've actually had a few people recently who are like, oh, do you want to play around with this and this hardware? And I'm just like, I don't need boards, I need time. It's like, I have a board with that chip on it. I don't need another board with the same chip. So I feel yeah. Okay. All right. So let's just talk CircuitPython 2021. And obviously I'm plugging this. I want to hear from everybody. So here's the kickoff post. It's based on the one from last year. If you have ideas around specific things, we want to hear them. So let's just take a quick look at the few responses we've gotten so far. So Brian was the first to post, also known as Sedacious, and really is focused on documentation again. Robust and fruitful open source project requires continual help from community members. More help is always better. Story time. Brian's a good writer. I love this. Brian's arbitrary rules for good documentation. First bullet point. Exist. It's totally true though, right? Like, the first step to doing documentation is writing anything. Be accessible. Yeah. And I think, like, Brian nails it. Like, we have a lot of documentation. Finding it is not easy. And then don't suck. So make it better, be discoverable and inspirational. And I think those are like things that are, those are the nuances of documentation. Oh, interesting. So I also received the Olemex ESP32S2 LiPo board, same as the Sella, except some interesting USB OTG circuitry and LiPo support. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of S2 boards, and I think I'm really happy with. I'm happy with how CircuitPython is very easy to add new boards to once we have the platform. I think, and this is actually something that Jeff talks about. So there's two more roundups, and then we're gonna call it. Um, Somebody just said industrial controller. So let's just click through here. So having an industrial controller that can do like 12 or 24 volt DC is not something that Adafruit's going to do, but I replied, I was like, because they mentioned a particular manufacturer that has like boards that run Arduino. Like, I was like, I am happy to help another company get on board with CircuitPython. Be able to remake Boomy, so streaming MP3 support over Wi-Fi. It's definitely on our radar as well. Two features I miss most is ESP and Wi-Fi. Or Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And like, I think it's pretty clear that we're going to support the S3 when it's out. Like, I think that's a safe bet. So it'll come. So what does Hugo say? I think Hugo makes an important point. I've read all of these already. So managing libraries and dependencies, we talked about Circup a bit already. And then localization / ability of the platform. So I think this is a really important point that we've made this weird choice that we translate error messages in like the core of CircuitPython, but like so much of like CircuitPython the project is like libraries and stuff, and none of that is translated. So I think Hugo's totally right on the idea of like we just need to figure out how to do translations on the library side, and then once we have that framework, we can like do it. So yeah, I think that would be really good, and we should get there. And then build and a deploy utility, which I think I'm not sure if it's talking about. Oh, this is talking about the library side of being like able to strip things out, which is kind of like MPY, like MPy cross stuff. And something that can coordinate so that you make sure and Hugo's in the chat and says, I kind of went into the weeds and the reeds a bit. It's all good. Like, I'm not a particularly spectacular writer, but I think your point is, we just went through all the feedback before, and like, this is the first time that like somebody said like, hey, like we need to localize outside of the core. And I think you're totally right. Build and deploy, I think you're getting towards more like the circup side, whereas like I'm like, I hate make, I would like to replace make, which is the way that like I read it, so to speak. That is weird. So Neradoc says, when I Google modules and functional names on CircuitPython, I land on the v2.0 read the docs, and the version menu to jump to latest does not work. Double check if it's not circuitpython.readthedocs.io. It might be like my copy that I had at one point. But I have tried to I have tried to I have tried to turn the other ones off so that they won't show up. But yeah, sorry. It is something that has come up. Bruce S says Olemex even has a USB VID, maybe an easy CircuitPython port. Did I mention that module is a Cortex M4? I don't know. I think the other thing to think about. Oh yeah, you're making the argument it could fit on a QTPy. QTPy with BLE. Yeah. I think that would be cool. Yeah, I know. Autocorrect is worse. Okay, these are from Jeff. We're like home stretch, and we're a half hour over. And maybe I should be linking to all this in the notes. I'll just say that we're going through it all. So timing is pretty happy. Jeff's done a lot of work to bring microlabs, so points that out. So broader goals, support at least one new microcontroller family, which I think is like, we're growing. We're going to do that. Continue to help people grow into the roles of reviewer and contributor. Spotlight more how-to content. So I should say one thing I want to do, and this will help Jeff as well, is I'd like to actually have guests on the show. By that I mean this stream. So I need to reach out to Jeff. I haven't actually told him this, but I think it would be cool to have contributors to CircuitPython like also on the video. So like audio you can hear, and we'll like, if they're working on something, we'll talk about it and like deep dive with somebody else. I think that would be really cool. If you agree with me, let me know. But or if you want to come on the show, let me know and talk about stuff. I think that's one thing that we could do more broadly is like highlight the people we have in our community better. Like, I think folks like Jeff is great, but Jerry is great as well. So if we could start highlighting some other folks, I think that would be really cool. Me6 says +1 for double deep dive. Let's see. Yep. Worried about increasing time and complexity of the build, which I agree. Spread too thin by multiple in-progress ports. I agree with that too, although we're most of the way through the S2, and I suspect the S2 work will apply to the C3. I hope it'll apply to the C3 and the S3 as well. Specific bundles for specific applications is something we've seen come up, and I think is a good idea. Pure Wi-Fi or Bluetooth development workflow. Path manipulation library. Oh, I meant to point out, like I like PathLib a lot now. That would be really good. Location for common files like fonts, icons, and sounds. David in Twitch says, I agree that if you pair dive, the instant feedback in audio will be stimulating and productive for all. The guest and you will also benefit. Yeah. And I floated the idea past Phil and Lamar too, so they're on board. Read-write storage that doesn't interfere with access to CircuitPy for a host computer. Johnny says we need full Zigbee support in CircuitPython. Blog it up. I don't think why? Why do we need Zigbee support? How is it better than like BLE broadcasts? I haven't done Zigbee a lot. Yeah, so that's for Jeff. And then we just have these two more. We have Benny and Foamy Guy. I haven't done mine yet, although I've talked about it a bit. I could cheat and just say that the stream is it, but I'm gonna write something up too. Benny's thoughts. Add S3 hardware support and what this could enable via BLE. Implement wireless roaming and WPA3, which somebody actually just brought up. Yeah, I know the overlay's broken. I don't know why, but I can refresh it. Microbit v2 support would be amazing. And then Benny actually commented with some links to both the S3 stuff and the WPA3 stuff. WP3. And DCD says another vote for standard locations. I'm sorry. Sorry about the overlay. Interesting. So Zigbee support, that's an interesting idea for home automation. Please file an issue. I could I could see us actually maybe picking that up. Okay, so Hugo and Bruce S says loving that Bluetooth workflow would lead to ESP32 support. Yeah, potentially. Loading it on the first time might still be like, how do you do it? But we'd have to figure that out anyway. Like, what's a BLE boot? I guess we have BLE bootloaders. Okay, so Hugo says, will there be a recap of all the ideas and a vote or decision on what to focus on? So the recap is just, I think what I did last year and what I plan on doing this year is really just like a running list of all of these. I think I will like kind of just do what I did today on all the new ones. So in the next few weeks, you can expect me to do this kind of portion in the deep dives about stuff. Whether there's a vote or decision on what to focus on, I think that's a trickier question that we talked a bit about earlier. There's a difference between what we collectively as a CircuitPython community focus on and what people who are paid by Adafruit work on. And so what my hope is that, you know, there's two roles of doing this. Ideas, sharing all the ideas. One role is if there's good enough idea or there's ideas interesting to Adafruit themselves to make products based on, like then Adafruit folks will do the work. If that's not the case, it still serves a purpose that like this really demonstrates, which is say I'm interested in this thing, and then you can find the other people that are also interested in it and collaborate, right? Like so like there's two people in the chat that say like Zigbee would be awesome, and so, you know, between the two of you and me helping you, pointing you in the right direction and all of that stuff, like I'd like to see things happen. But I don't want to imply that like the thing that everybody wants is something that like Adafruit's going to pick up, because there's not that relationship. Partly because Adafruit has ideas of what they want to do in the coming year. And like, if you've seen, like a lot of our work is centered around like what we plan for AdaBoxes. So like the last AdaBox in December was an ESP, it was a mag tag, right, with the ESP32S2. So like that AdaBox like flagship product pace like drives a lot of what we're doing in CircuitPython, and we being the people paid by Adafruit. So don't look to, if you want to be surprised about what's in your AdaBox, don't look at what we're working on, because it's usually related. Okay, I think we have one more, and then I gotta stop talking because my throat is donezo. Let's see what Foamy Guy says. So more display I/O, which would be awesome. UI widgets is really what I wanted to do from the very beginning. And so I'll be happy to see Foamy Guy pick that up. Display layouts is a totally like along with that. More guides. The guides are really helpful. And then trying to do more internals, which would be really great. And then a console game made with display I/O that runs on PC, Raspberry Pi with Linux, and then also on a Pi Gamer. I think that would be really, really cool too. David G says that AdaBox being too easy to guess is a problem. How to make it a surprise? I think either you have to be pleasantly surprised early on, or you have to just not pay attention to what we're working on. We kind of just acknowledge that like the work we do is in preparation for it. It's a surprise for the people that really are like subscribe and forget. Mark Olson asks, does CircuitPython support BLE mesh? No. Doesn't mean we couldn't add it. Nerodoc says the not shipping to Europe is a bigger one for me, or Singapore. Me6 points out. I think when we have extra AdaBoxes, I think you can. But the problem is that the AdaBox cost includes the cost for shipping. I don't think it's extra. So like there's a reason that the subscription can't just send it anywhere. All right. I think that's... Is it about tax estimation? It could be about that too. Oh, AdaBox 16 had 30 in stock last week, but they were gone within hours. You can always look at the guide. The guide will have the contents of the box, and almost all of the stuff in the box is stuff we stock afterwards as well. Okay, let's... I'll put a wrap-up time code here. So thank you all for sticking with me for like 2 hours and 40 minutes. I really, please, if you have ideas, please do a CircuitPython 2021 post. It's really helpful for us all to see what things are priorities for each other. I'll do mine probably next week, maybe the week after. I might be a little slow at it. But yeah, I will definitely do one. Juan Carlos says, I thought AdaBox was about a stellar performance from John Park, and you get a free box at the side. It's certainly becoming that, right? John's doing an amazing job in the unboxings. Okay, so yeah, thank you all. I'll be back next week. This has been Deep Dive with Scott on Adafruit. If you want to support me, we talked about this a little bit. I do have GitHub sponsors that does support me directly, but Adafruit pays me to do these streams and all of the development that you see. So please support Adafruit as well, adafruit.com to do that. And I think that's it. Email CircuitPython2021@adafruit.com. It'll go to me and I'll blog it up in these kind of like individual things. So yeah, thank you so much as always. Expect to see some guests. I'm not sure exactly when the first guest will be, but I do want to experiment with that as well, kind of highlighting folks who work on CircuitPython. So if you have suggestions that you'd like to see as well, let me know, and always open to that. So join us on the Discord, adafru.it/discord. To chat with me and a lot of other awesome folks. If you have a question, ask the question. Don't mention me until you know nobody else has answered. Make Augusta says, "Oh no, I made it at the end." Yes, you did. Sorry. If you wait a little while, there will be time codes on the video if you don't want to watch all 2.5 hours. Anyway, thank you all, and I'll talk with you on Discord in the next week, and I will see you on this stream next week as well. So have a good one.